Hello, I'm Vincent Makori in for #. It's Thursday, September 9th. This is Africa 54.
The West Africa regional bloc suspends Guinea following a coup. A South African rhino ranch keeps poachers away, but at a cost. And a South African animator fuses cartoons with reality.
The Economic Community of West African States is calling for coup leaders to release ousted Guinean President Alpha Conde and return to constitutional order. David Doyle has the details.
Guinea has been suspended from West Africa's main political and economic bloc following the weekend military coup that ousted President Alpha Conde. The 15-member Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, held a virtual summit on Wednesday to discuss the situation. Burkina Faso's Foreign Minister Alpha Barry said ECOWAS was demanding a return to constitutional order and the immediate release of Conde and others who were arrested.
A high-level mission should be sent by ECOWAS to Guinea as of tomorrow in order to speak with the new authorities. And after this mission, ECOWAS should be able to re-examine their positions. But for now, ECOWAS has decided to suspend Guinea from all the decision-making instances of ECOWAS. We ask that this decision be endorsed by the African Union and the United Nations.
Barry did not announce any immediate economic sanctions, as ECOWAS did with Mali's coup last year. Some experts say ECOWAS's leverage over Guinea is limited, as the country is not landlocked like Mali, nor is it a member of the West African Currency Union. Guinea's coup leader, Mamadou Doumbouya, has promised a unified transitional government, but has not yet said when or how this will happen. At least 80 political prisoners were released on Tuesday evening. Many had campaigned against a constitutional change which allowed Conde to stand for a third term. The military has also been dismantling forward posts. They were used at the height of the protests against the constitutional change to house police and soldiers. Located in different neighborhoods of the capital Conakry, they facilitated rapid responses. Doumbouya has also met with heads of Guinea's various military branches as he hopes to unify the country's armed forces under the junta's command.
Well, David Doyle of Reuters fired that report. The Italian Coast Guard at dawn on Thursday rescued 125 migrants that had been spotted standing on the shores of Isola delle Conigli, a small island close to Lampedusa. The migrants had been traveling on different boats, at least one of which had almost sunk. Using an inflatable mattress, the Coast Guard winched the migrant from the shore to their rescue vessel in a difficult maneuver made worse by rough seas. 49 women were part of the group, along with 20 minors. They were taken to the island of Lampedusa, where they are being held in a holding center. French Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin says that he clearly told his British counterpart, Priti Patel, that the United Kingdom must stick to its commitments on migrants attempting to cross the English Channel to reach Britain. Darmanin was responding after Britain approved plans to turn away boats illegally carrying migrants to its shores, deepening a rift over how to deal with migrants trying to reach Britain by boat. Hundreds of rickety vessels have attempted the dangerous journey from France to the UK this year. Border officials will be trained to force boats away from British waters, but will deploy the new tactic only when they deem it safe, according to a British government official who asked not to be named. Patel has told Darmanin that stopping people making their way from France on small boats was a #1 priority. Now, each year, poachers kill hundreds of rhinos in South Africa. It is the biggest reason why the international trade of rhino horn is banned. But the country's largest private breeder says he should be able to sell rhino horn so he can continue keeping the protected species safe. Lucy Fielder explains.
At South Africa's largest private rhino breeder, horns are getting cut back. It's a measure designed to deter poachers. But there's a question over what to do with the trimmings. This is the Platinum Rhino Conservation Enterprise, home to nearly 2,000 southern white rhinos, once thought to be extinct. Owner John Hume says they've been keeping the protected species safe for 4.5 years, but that he might not be able to go on unless he's allowed to sell horns and live rhinos.
If my government helped me do that in order to pay for this project will thrive and get better and better with more and more rhinos.
Rhino horn is used in traditional Chinese medicine and is prized as a status symbol in other parts of Asia. That makes poaching a widespread problem. Hundreds of rhinos are killed each year. Hume says cameras and radars have helped keep poachers away from his game park.
I'm fearful because I cannot go on doing what I'm doing forever.
But he says without export, it costs 5 million rand a month, or around $350,000.
I have been battling to export some rhinos to Vietnam for years, and the government just finds a way to block me all the time instead of helping me.
A statement on the Ministry of Environment's website said the international commercial trade of rhino horn remains prohibited. Poaching rose by 50% in the first half of 2021. That's after a decline in 2020, according to South African government figures, partly attributed to lockdowns.
Well, that was Lucy Fielder of Reuters reporting. Staying in the region, self-taught animator Lozimistifa has earned a 13-episode animated series on satellite television. It's believed to be the first of his compatriots to do so for his creation of a Timber, a cartoon character who gets stuck in the real world. Clara Frank has more.
Self-taught animator Lwazi Masifa wanted to create something adults and kids could enjoy. And the South African's efforts have now won him a coveted spot on satellite TV, with a little help from a friend.
It's your boy Timber here, and look, don't forget to watch My Cartoon Friend only on Cartoon Network.
Masifa's premise was a cartoon character who's accidentally uploaded into the real world. The pair are then stuck together in what Masifa describes as a Tom and Jerry type of relationship.
He's a cartoon in the real world, and he doesn't understand that in the real world, the dynamics are much different,
Masifa says he was inspired by the likes of The Simpsons, Family Guy, and South Park, but also wanted to create something that was uniquely South African.
That, kids can look at and say, this is ours. This is something that we have in South Africa that's very successful, that's doing global.
My Cartoon Friend debuted on the Cartoon Network in South Africa last month. Masifa is the first of his compatriots to get a full 13-episode series.
Animation is such a small industry in Africa, and it's still growing. So basically, I want to be one of the people that grow it. I want to be in the forefront of growing the animation industry and letting kids know that you too can jump into this animation industry. There's a lot of, opportunities, there's a lot of money to be made, and there's a hunger for South African content.
Cartoon Network's head of kids content for Africa, Ariana Suveg, says they found Masifa's concept very promising.
This idea of mixing, real footage with animation, with in an African environment with African characters, it's totally new for us.
She added that the company was still looking for African content, especially in animation, meaning potentially more opportunity for animators in South Africa and across the continent to bring their creativity to life. Clara Frank, VOA News.
Now, whether it's NFT, the heart's new authentication technology associated with a virtual object, or online applications in which you are represented by an avatar, the virtual world is becoming increasingly pervasive in our lives. In these parallel realities, we can buy properties for thousands of dollars, go for a walk with friends, or simply attend concerts. VOA's Azuma Compaore wanted to know more about the new technology, and he invites us to take a little trip into the future, into the metaverse.
Hello and welcome. We're inviting you today into a very exciting journey into the future. This is Avatar Dimension. It is the only certified Microsoft mixed reality capture studio in the East Coast and just one of 5 around the world. The studio plays a key role in the metaverse world by creating photorealistic human holograms that are then placed into immersive environment. But wait, you said metaverse? I know someone who can tell us more about it. Her name is Kathy Harkle. She's a futurist and VP at the studio. She's also a top technology voice on LinkedIn with a new book titled Augmented Workforce. So Kathy, what's the metaverse?
So the metaverse, you have to really think about it as the successor of the mobile internet that we have today. So it's kind of where we're heading into the future. Easiest way to describe it is Web 1.0, connected information, and you got the internet. Web 2.0, connected people, and you got social media, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And Web 3.0, kind of where we're starting to go, connects people, places, and things. And sometimes these people, places, and things can be in our real world, our physical world, or they can be in a virtual world. When I think about the metaverse, I think about almost the internet breaking free from our phones and our computers and being all around us, right? So I think that that'll unleash in itself a lot of opportunities because we're going to engage with technology in a much more human way, whether we're in Ghana or whether we're in Singapore or New York.
So we're talking about limiting screen time to kids today. In the next future, they're pretty much going to be living inside those same screens. How do you see this?
So, I mean, it's really interesting because during the pandemic, I think the limit of screen time went out the door for parents. But I do think it is a relevant point and it is a relevant concern, right? I do think that we're limiting ourselves in understanding what the metaverse is if we try to put a screen in front of it, right? Or think that the screen time that they spend looking at this flat surface is going to translate the same to how they're going to interact with the metaverse. And I think that that is a big difference. So I think that many of us that are older millennials and up come from a world where virtual or digital wasn't something that we did first, right? My children, who are all under 11, they are digital natives. They are used to technology, you know, and I think that every parent out there sees their children and understands that to them, their digital lives and their physical lives are equally important. So I think that it's a change in mindset.
So Kathy, you work at Avatar Dimension, located in Ashburn, Virginia, where I'm actually in the studio, one of their studios. It works with clients to create volumeric videos to tell their stories. Let's have a quick tour.
So this is our volumetric video studio. We are only the second Microsoft mixed reality capture studio in the United States, the only one on the eastern coast of the United States. So our stage here is comprised of 70 cameras. They're arranged in a circle 20 feet across. We have 8 vertical towers of cameras and a 9th overhead rig of cameras, all pointed inwards towards the person standing in the center. There is an 8-foot circle taped out here on the floor, which represents the usable capture space that we can record while filming.
Here we go. 1, 2. And got it.
Our studio captures raw data at a rate of roughly 1.3 terabytes per minute. 1 minute of processing, real-time processing, takes roughly about a day. So once we've captured a single frame and processed it just to show that everything is recreating the way that we expect it to, we can proceed with the shoot. We can roll all of our takes, and when we're done, we'll process just the takes that we've identified as the best ones. Additionally, we could take this frame, this one still frame of you, add a skeleton to it. We could do what's called rigging, where we actually have the ability to repose, move your arms and your legs. We could then insert you into any three-dimensional environment and give you the freedom to walk around within it.
There is a trajectory of education to kind of teach people, but we are seeing a demand where people are really interested in it, and I think it's going to accelerate faster as as more people learn about it.
Fascinating. That was VOA's Azuma Compaore reporting. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, how man's best friend has helped to keep U.S. airports safe for 2 decades.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is seeking to boost international diplomatic efforts regarding Afghanistan by co-hosting a ministerial meeting in Germany. VOA's senior diplomatic correspondent Cindy Sain reports.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is stepping up efforts to get a grip on the situation in Afghanistan, meeting with German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas at Ramstein Air Base in Germany. Blinken acknowledged that planes chartered to bring Americans, their families, and at-risk Afghans out of the country have been stuck at Mazar-e-Sharif International Airport in Afghanistan.
As of now, the Taliban are not permitting the charter flights to depart. They claim that some of the passengers do not have the required documentation. While there are limits to what we can do without personnel on the ground, without an airport, with normal security and procedures in place, we are working to do everything in our power to support those flights and to get them off the ground.
Germany has been a major transit point for Americans and Afghans evacuated since the Taliban took power in Kabul in mid-August. Asked how the U.S. and Germany will deal with Afghanistan's new interim government, whose interior minister is wanted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said he was not optimistic about the caretaker Taliban government, but added he has to talk with them.
We have had direct talks with the Taliban. Up to now, if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't have been able to evacuate vulnerable groups, Germans, Afghans, from Afghanistan. We still have German nationals in Afghanistan, but we don't have any diplomatic representation in Kabul, Afghanistan. So in order to evacuate these German nationals, we need to have people to talk to on the ground.
Earlier Wednesday, Blinken met at the base with U.S. personnel and Afghan refugees waiting to board flights to America. Blinken told them that many Americans are excited to welcome them. One Afghan refugee, who did not give his name, said much remains uncertain.
Yeah, first we're going to land in D.C., so we have some process going on, the biometric and everything else. While we are done with the documents, everything else, then they're going to take us to the camp. And we don't know where, because that's up to them.
As some Afghans prepare to start new lives abroad, a few Afghan women protested in Kabul again Wednesday at the announcement of an all-male, all-Taliban, hardline interim government. Cindy Sain, VOA News.
In 2002, VOA's Ken Farabaugh, then a reporter for the U.S. military, visited Afghanistan in the early stages of America's 20-year presence in the country. As the United States ends its military engagement, Farabaugh follows up with some of those he met in those early years to discuss the U.S. withdrawal and the legacy of their mission.
My assignment to Afghanistan in 2002 was to understand the conditions and motivations of service members who were spending their first 4th of July holiday after 9/11 in Afghanistan, trying to rout the al-Qaeda terrorist network.
Meanwhile, an Air Force B-52 was also in the area on a planned mission to bomb suspected Taliban and al-Qaeda locations.
My friend and American Forces Network colleague, Staff Sergeant Dan Milbauer, accompanied me on our first experience in a combat zone.
When you come into the country the way we did, in a military aircraft and under cover of darkness, to avoid being shot at and landing in a corkscrew kind of pattern, you know, that's kind of when it first hits you that, oh yeah, this is real. You know, we are going into harm's way.
At the time, nearly 10,000 U.S. forces were in harm's way, many based at Bagram Airfield, which was quickly growing into one of the largest U.S. military facilities in the world. It's where Rhonda Lawson served with a U.S. Army Mobile Public Affairs Detachment, or MPAD, which hosted us in Afghanistan.
I'm a print journalist by trade.
To keep U.S. troops there informed, her team produced a base newspaper and other products.
We run stories not just here at Bagram, but also stories from Kabul. Every once in a while we might get a story from Kandahar or from Uzbekistan. What I took pride in doing was telling the soldier story. We talked about the mission, but at the same time, I wanted people to know that our soldiers were real people. Our soldiers had families. Our soldiers had feelings.
U.S. troops also received messages from back home showing passionate support for their mission.
One of the cards that I got, it just said kick bin Laden's ass on it. You know, so there was that sense that we needed to get revenge.
But finding bin Laden took nearly a decade. Neither Lawson nor others we spoke to during our 2002 visit,
it's like a long-ass camping trip,
thought operations in Afghanistan would become the longest in U.S. history.
In Desert Storm, a lot of the fighting ended in about 6 weeks. I think people thought that this was going to be quick, like Desert Storm.
Of course, obviously, a lot of us thought that any operations around 9/11 response would be temporary or quick.
As the war in Afghanistan dragged on, Milbauer returned to the country a second time in 2003 to work with a psychological operations, or PSYOP unit.
It's really kind of trying to, I guess, strategically put out information.
Milbauer says he noticed some things had changed when he returned to Bagram Airfield.
There was more activity, more people there, and then I think more coalition partners had forces there.
And working in Afghanistan was more dangerous, says Milbauer. He vividly remembers a close call during a mission to support a remote Afghan radio station.
I heard this whistling of an RPG coming in, so it passed over my head.
No one was injured, says Milbauer. For him, the constant threat of attack didn't change his outlook on U.S. military objectives, including helping locals to have a better life.
Some of the things we did, when I say we, I mean the coalition forces, was to, teach people that kind of stuff and provide them with clean water sources and, lots of money to improve their lives. So in that regard, I was behind that all the way.
Milbauer and Lawson were two of more than 775,000 U.S. forces who served at least one deployment to Afghanistan since 2001. More than 2,300 lost their lives. Despite the country now falling back into the hands of the Taliban, Lawson, who retired from the U.S. Army in 2017, believes the U.S. effort was not in vain.
I will never consider our presence in Afghanistan a failure.
It's hard to say whether the mission was accomplished in total.
Milbauer, who left the military in 2007, feels the U.S. reached the point of doing all it could in Afghanistan.
We've found and eliminated Osama bin Laden. I think after 20 years, it's probably time to get out of there and let them try to take care of themselves the best they can.
Many Afghans are now worried about how they will be treated by the Taliban, who took control of most of the country as U.S. forces pulled out of Afghanistan, ending America's longest conflict. Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Peterborough, New Hampshire.
As the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks approaches, VOA's Julie Tabo looks at the special canine teams deployed over the past 20 years that have helped keep U.S. airports safe.
Good boy. Canine teams and airports across the U.S. are doing their part to keep the nation safe from terrorists. Thanks to their sensitive noses, dogs can navigate among large groups of people to locate the source of an explosive odor, even if the source is on the go.
If a device, an improvised explosive device, is artfully concealed, the canine doesn't care. They're not looking for it, they're smelling for it.
Canine handlers are trained to read their dog's change of behavior when it indicates an explosive scent has been detected. TSA procures the dogs among 7 breeds. The animals' versatility makes them perfect for the job.
You can move them around to the surface environment, mass transit. You can move them into the sterile area of the terminal. You can go out to the public area and screen vehicles. They have tremendous versatility and tremendous capability.
More than 1,000 canine teams, which include a dog and its handler, are in operation today, up from about 200 when the September 11, 2001 attacks took place. 10 years ago, dogs began screening passengers in addition to cargo, one of many changes in airport security after the so-called underwear bomber tried to ignite explosives in his clothing on a 2009 flight. The dogs and their handlers go through weeks of intense training before they're sent to an airport. The cost of these teams, $160 million in the past fiscal year. But do the dogs keep travelers safer? The canines serve as a visual deterrent, but also identify items that need further inspection by explosives detection specialists, the TSA says. In an audit conducted from 2018 to 2019, the Government Accountability Office, which oversees federal spending, found that the TSA's passenger screening canine program needed improvements, including how the agency manages the program and where it deploys teams. The TSA has taken steps to implement the agency's recommendations, says Tina Sherman, who's with the GAO.
We have definitely observed that the TSA has made progress in developing and deploying their canine teams over the years.
Woohoo! Good girl! At the end of the day, TSA canines, many of which have been named for victims of 9/11, don't regard what they do as work, but a way of using their natural abilities to have a little fun and get a reward for a job well done.
Who's a good boy?
Julie Tabo, VOA News.
Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.